Hello. There we go. We're back. Okay. Sorry, guys. Excited to be back for day two and day three of the Epic Mock 26, man. I'm excited. We have the Seattle Seahawks picked at 32 in the first round. We ended up grabbing a guard. We'll talk about it, Chase Basantis, but we are off and running here on day two, and I'll go ahead and pull up the board so you can see it as we go along as far as this is concerned. Um, so, like I just said, Chase Santos goes off the board there at 32, and we are back into what exactly is happening as far as the next rounds after that. Avion Terrell goes off to start off day two to the New York Jets. Immediately pull up with Denzel Boston to the New Orleans Saints. Ted Hurst, very high to the Tennessee Titans. Caden McDonald to the Las Vegas Raiders. Maynard Pregnon, the other guard that we were considering at 32 off the board to New York Giants. Houston Texans take Christian Miller to add to that defensive line room that is stacked. Emmanuel McNeil Warren to the Browns, and they would say need it from the safety perspective as far as that is concerned. My Kansas City Chiefs take Mr. Lee Hunter, defensive tackle out of Texas Tech. I do not love that pick personally, I'll be honest. However, they did already grab two pretty good players as far as the draft is concerned. CJ Allen, linebacker, Cincinnati Bengals, really a very nice pick. A guy that has, in my opinion, first round talent. I don't know if it's necessarily a full first round grade. But the fact that you end up getting him in the second round for the Bengals and that defense that needs a lot of help makes a lot of sense. Gabe Yakus, one of my favorite draft crutches going to the Bills. That would hurt my soul, to be perfectly honest with you. Zion Young lasted a little bit longer than I expected to the Miami Dolphins. Something to note, we were in talks with the Miami Dolphins to move back to that pick 43 out of 32 ultimately before we ended up staying and picking as far as that was concerned. Eli Stowers, Akeem Mesidor off the board. Akeem Mesidor, really, that's a Ravens second round pick if I've ever seen. The guy that fell out of the draft, out of the first round for some reason, or another, and all of a sudden, hey, look at that, he's there and he's a Raven. So I'm going to be ready to go through some of these picks as well, and kind of talk a little bit more in depth. And then also where we're going to go as far as the Seattle Seahawks is concerned as we get into day two, which they do have the last pick of the second and third rounds on this day. Once again, want to thank everybody that is joining up and watching us as far as across all of the great people that are putting out this content here. And this is a lot of fun as well. I'm trying to go ahead and update what I have my tracking draft along with it. See that we're on alignment as far as that is concerned. It's funny. We also had a trade happen in real life, and then also a trade happen in this mock draft world. Funny enough, all things considered. So I'm going to see if I can get to these as well. In that standpoint, let me see. Here we go. Let's see. All right, there we go. That's what I was looking for. All right. Sorry. I'm making sure that I got everything set up on my end as far as that is concerned. Let's see what we got here. All right. All right. Seems like we're gonna go ahead and roll with this right here. without it. The Eagles are moving up four. Let me go ahead and pull this up a little bit further. Yep, you can see where Chris Johnson, a guy that I think ultimately could end up going in the back end of the first round. I think that's very much on the board for Chris Johnson in that standpoint. I think it's a really good draft pick for the Eagles to go here. So shout out to the Eagles making some moves in that standpoint too. Let's see what's going on here. All right, let's get going. I know I discussed having some guests last stream here last night, but we are actually have some guests lined up. Some people I called in some favors. Some people that you're going to see. Some Chiefs content creators. Definitely looking forward to that as far as that is concerned. Also going to be able to have on Peter Quinn, who's a Seattle Seahawks fan from the UK. Very excited for that. And then also we're going to have on my good friend Commander Seasoned himself, Mander Manny. He's going to pop on a little bit later on into this stream as we get started here on day two as well. So I feel like I gotta pick up exactly where the Jets left off and go ahead and pick up with some of these picks here. All right, Avion Terrell as a pick, and the Saints trade with the Bills. Let's see what that trade ended up being. Okay, the Eagles traded 114 to move up those six spots and also got a seventh rounder back. Okay. It's an interesting deal there for the Eagles and Atlanta as far as that is concerned. All right, let's see what we got here. So the Saints and the Bills made an earlier trade that was 34 and 91 for 42, 73, and 150. That's an interesting deal right there. And the Saints ended up with that pick taking Mr. Denzel Boston, a guy that I think is worthy of a back end of the first round pick, in my personal opinion. Truthfully, I think that he can be an X wide receiver in National Football League, but he can do more things than just your standard X. And I think that that's a big key of his evaluation. He goes up and attacks the football in a relentless way. And I think that that's a big key as well. I mean, if you're going to be that X outside wide receiver, got to be able to beat man coverage, particularly on a linear plane, which I think that he can do. Got to be able to be strong versus press, which I think he is. There's going to be some stiffness for normal X prospects. You're talking about borderline first, second round. Absolutely, that's going to happen. Caleb Banks of Vikings. I'll talk about that one in a bit. Um, and I think that he satisfies all of those skills, and I think he has a little bit more movement skills than people give him credit for, in my personal opinion, too. Tennessee Titans taking Ted Hurst this early is kind of crazy, in my personal opinion. I'll be perfectly honest with you guys. It's nuts. I'm not going to lie to you. I was not expecting that, to say the least. That was it took me by surprise when I read that. Oh, I saw that come across the ticker, man. But hey, man, I like the kid in the third round. I just wasn't expecting to see it there, to say the least. Betting on the small school guy, height, weight, speed, can go get it. Showed some really good skills on tape as far as Georgia State was concerned. You have question marks as far as the competition, but during All Star break, I think he answered a lot of those question marks as far as the competition was concerned, the way that he showed out. So I think that's a big key of the evaluation that you're going to go into the draft with. If a team falls in love with it, it's going to be a lot based on the fact that he showed that he can play with those boys, down there in Mobile. But whoo-wee, that is rich, to say the least. Manuel Pregnon, awesome guard. I think that's going to be a really good pick for the Giants in the interior offensive line. Christian Miller, to the Texans, like I mentioned, just absolutely stacking that defensive line. I mean, hey, good luck with what you want to try and get done against that Texans defense in general if they add Christian Bell in the middle of it in the second round. Mander McNeil Warren to the Browns, another guy that I have a borderline first round grade on ultimately. Playing that deep half, the way that they like to play that Browns defense, particularly, I think makes a lot of sense. And anytime that you can add a talent, in my opinion, with the versatility that Emmanuel McNeil Warren brings to the table, I think that makes a lot of sense for the Browns and where they can get after the passer. They just need good players, and I think Emmanuel McNeil Warren is certainly one of them. And so to get him at the top of the second is pretty good value. Lee Hunter, taken by my Kansas City Chiefs by Price Carter. I don't love this pick. Personally, Lee Hunter is not a guy that I am extremely high on. The lack of athleticism, he doesn't really impress me with his get off. If he played with incredible leverage on a consistent basis, I could even get there, but even still, it's a little bit inconsistent for what I want. He could chew gap. There's no doubt about it. I questioned about the upside, though, as far as that's concerned, and that's really why he fell down my interior defensive line rankings a little bit there. If you're taking defensive line at 40, in my opinion, apologies. If you're taking defensive line at 40, in my opinion, if you're the Kansas City Chiefs after you've gone T.J. Parker and ended up taking Jamal McCoy, I understand it because of the options at wide receiver may not be exactly what you want, especially Denzel Boston, Casey Concepcion, long off the board. Mario Cooper also, Omar Cooper Jr. also off the board too. I understand it, but if you're going defensive lineman there, I'm swinging for the fences and I'm going after Caleb Banks, who's fallen down the board due to the injury history. So that'd be the thing for me personally that I would prefer to go to from that standpoint. Right after that, C.J. Allen to the Bengals, a really good pick for what they need in the middle of that defense badly. There's just no two ways about it. They need defensive line. I mean, they need linebacker help, and they could do some defensive line help too. But they need linebacker help in the middle of that defense to be able to be a leader, and they absolutely get that in him. Gabe Yakus, like I said, to the Bills is one that would hurt my soul, especially the fact that they get him after a trade back, getting extra picks. Love the kid so much. One of my favorite day two edge is, to say the least. And the fact that he goes here as a steal. Zion Young, awesome guy. Another guy to Miami Dolphins. They need everything, but certainly to have him on the line as a leader, I think is a really important piece for them too. Um, and obviously they are going to be able to say, hey, you're gonna lead this room, and he has the mentality to do so. And I think that's a key piece of the evaluation when you talk about a team that's very much starting from scratch from that standpoint. Eli Stowers goes to the Jets, and Mason Taylor is somebody that is a draft darling of sorts, but they kind of feel like, hey, this is not necessarily going to be a guy that prevents us from going and adding to the position. So Eli Stowers, second tight end off the board, really athletic, not going to get really much from the passing. I mean, the blocking as far as that's concerned, but it's understandable, is what it is. But it's something to say the least. Akeem Mesdor, pick for the Rams, like I said, kind of similar to the Mike Green pick last year. It's like, hey, this guy's got other issues, and that's why he's falling down draft. Akeem Mesdor doesn't have those issues necessarily, but it is the age aspect, and that's why ultimately he falls down this draft board into the second round. Hey, day one, Ravens got themselves a really good pass rusher opposite Trey Henderson. There's no two ways about that. So you got to deal with that if you're dealing with the Ravens in the AFC. It's a really good pick for them. Jake Galladay and Jeremiah. I said Jeremiah. I'm going to make that mistake so much. It's going to be insane. Josiah Trotter going back to back, I think is certainly fascinating. Needs for Galladay to the Buccaneers makes a lot of sense. Colts need linebacker for Trotter, makes a lot of sense for them. So two guys are going to lead the middle of the defenses for those teams moving forward as well. And Colts obviously are looking for a trade for one Mister. I was going to look for the name for one Mister Kenny Moore, and that ended up coming down the pipe here recently, which was a little bit of a surprise to an extent, but it's understandable why they ended up wanting to possibly explore that and a mutual thing as far as that is concerned. Atlanta and Philly made a trade. Philly came up, like I said, 54 and 114 for 48 and 231. For 48 and 231. It's an interesting deal. I understand why the Eagles identified not only just a need, but also a really good player to come up and say, hey, we want to go get this guy. Chris Johnson certainly fits that bill. Not mad at that at all for their decision to go make that deal. in my personal opinion. So shout out to Chris Johnson, man. Really good player to San Diego State. Again, another guy back into the first round. If you want a corner, I can understand you wanting to get that guy in your building. Minnesota Vikings taking Caleb Banks, man. What Caleb Banks is going to allow to be do is going to be free to do, I should say, in the middle of a in the middle of a Brian Flores defense is going to be scary. That is a scary thing. I think Caleb Banks has all the potential in the world. You look at the disruption that he creates, it is spectacular. Yes, consistency issues. Yes, obviously the leverage is a little bit of a question mark. I think that the length, the athleticism, the get off is so special that you're like, hey, all we got to do is teach this guy to finish, and he's just going to be wreaking havoc in the middle of defense. And again, talking about Flores, that's exactly what he wants to see on a consistent basis. Kyle Lewis, linebacker out of Pittsburgh. Not the biggest fan of Kyle Lewis, only because I think it's a little bit interesting where you want to put him, and especially for the Lions, and that fit is going to be fascinating. It's look, I think that it's a fascinating decision. If you want to play him in the nickel, I can see it, but they already had Branch, and but you can do a pseudo three safety look with Kyle Lewis as that linebacker slash safety. So you want to play nickel? I can see the vision as far as that is concerned, and you want that type of player to give you some versatility. Again, when you're talking about in that division specifically, Vikings to an extent, and obviously Kyler Murray is going to be a piece of what the Vikings look like moving forward. Specifically going into this year, what their offensive, firepower looks like. But it does feel like it changes a little bit as far as what you're talking about for the Packers and the Bears and the way that you attack the Lions defense. Hey, do we want to get them in base by putting a heavy personnel on the field? Do we want to take advantage of? Hey, this gives you a little bit of flexibility where you may be in base and you feel good about defending the run, but you have a little bit more coverage ability out there. So can you get that level of versatility out of a guy like Kyle Lewis? That's ultimately going to be the thing that determines if the pick is worth it in that standpoint too. Chris Bell, wide receiver out of Louisville to the Panthers. After they end up going Jacob Rodriguez in the first round, and a bit of a shocker to be perfectly honest with you. But Chris Bell, Louisville, a guy with a lot of upside, a lot of AJ Brown comparisons for understandable reasons. I'll say I won't say that I'm to say would have that comp, but I understand why people get there. Guy that played outside, played a lot of vertical, could do a lot of things after the catch. Really good athlete. Unfortunately, had a major injury coming back from that this year, and we'll see what ultimately his timeline is going to look like. But hey, added to that room, that is Tet, that is Jalen Coker, a little bit of Leggett moved, sprinkled in. I do like where Bell could fit into that. And just again, a lot of physicality, a lot of speed, a lot of athleticism. I like what Chris Bell can bring to that wide receiver room if he's healthy. Brandon Cisse, versatile defensive back for the Packers, a big need for them, huge need for them. Big that they're going to be able to add him. Keelan Rutledge, guard out of Georgia Tech. Again, day two guy, but one worthy of the pick, and that'll be able to improve the offensive line for the Steelers. D'Angelo Ponds to the New England Patriots, and this ended up happening in another trade. Atlanta traded 54 to New England for 63 and 131 as well. New England moves up to go get their guy, and they had a whole bunch of picks. I believe after a trade back earlier in the day. No, they didn't end up trading back. They just have a whole lot of picks, and so they use an extra one to go ahead and try and get up and get this guy right here, and for understandable reasons. I think when you're talking about a guy like D'Angelo Ponds and what Mike Vrabel wants to do on the defensive side of the ball, the versatility, the mentality that he plays with, I completely get it. I understand why people are like he's a nickel, maybe primarily, but he can play outside if you need him to. There are some matchups in which you get him on a bigger wide receiver, it may look bad, but there are plenty in which it's not going to necessarily every single time. And I think that's a big key of it as well. Jennings Ducker out of Iowa, again, another good interior offensive line pick, particularly for the Chargers, a team that badly needs it as far as how bad that interior offensive line was last year. And you added to what they were able to do with Peter Woods in the first round. Again, talk about trenches. That's what the Chargers end up having as well. And finally, we're caught up here with Dale Jackson Jr. just going off the board to the Jacksonville Jaguars, again, adding to a defensive line that they kind of needed that depth in that standpoint. So a lot of stuff to catch up on that we ended up going through. But we are here. We're getting closer to the Seattle Seahawks pick here. The Seattle Seahawks picking there at 64. We'll leave that right there. Chicago Bears, San Francisco 49ers, Texas Bears again, and Rams, Broncos, Falcons, and Seahawks again coming up here. Um, so, as far as the Seattle Seahawks are concerned, and what could make a lot of sense for where we want to go with that pick, I think the um, after you end up going with the offensive guard to be able to secure that right guard position in the first round, then you're looking at those secondary needs: wide receiver, edge, running back, and the fact that right now we're sitting here and Jadarius Price is not going off the board, kind of interesting. Now that being said, there's one landmine that's in between. Well, I'd say two. There's two landmines in between here, and by the time we get to here, that may get in the way as far as that is concerned. We'll see if that ends up being a problem. I see you. I see you. I see you, Houston Texans. I see you, Denver Broncos. Either one of those teams could easily go to Jarian Price, and they would kind of take running back off the board and go like probably the third. And I've got some third round guys that I'd be intrigued by, but Jadarian Price is probably the only one that I'd take at 64 from that standpoint too. So let me go ahead and get this. Trying to take a look. Oh, that's what happened. I missed a pick. All right. Let's see something. The Packers. Steelers. I missed it. Okay. It's going through and missed a pick there. Nice. So we got Rutledge, and then we got Pons, Rutledge, Dunker, Pons, and we'll get Dale Jackson Jr. coming off the board right here. And we got the Bears on the clock currently. Okay, but there we go. We're nice and caught up. So with that being said, let's go ahead and, like I said, run through the potential options for the Seattle Seahawks here on the clock at pick 64 and what exactly we're looking at here. Again, after we filled that offensive guard need, in my personal opinion, in the first round, now you're looking to say, hey, can we get something to replace Kenneth Walker in the running back room? Can we get something to replace Boye Mafe in the edge room? Hey, do we want to go ahead and take a peek at adding to the linebacker room? If the guy that we really like is there, can we add to the secondary in some way? That's going to be a big question mark too. And certainly the wild card as far as wide receiver, though, I think there's none of these guys that really get me excited. But it looks like we may have a guest of ours that might have popped in. I'm going to see if we can go ahead and get him up here real quick while we have a little bit of time in between here. Let's see. Okay, let's see if we get CJ up on here. Can we get
Garrett.
the? Hey, there he is. There's my guy, CJ. How you doing, man?
Chilling, bro. I ain't trying to figure this out. Hold up, let me figure out my camera
Go
situation.
ahead. Take your time. Take your time. For those that do not know, this is my guy, CJ. We do the Tell the Truth podcast over on Kingdom Cast, covering the Chiefs every single Tuesday night. Excited to have my guy on. CJ is a big fan of the entire NFL draft, does a lot of scouting work as well, and he'll be debuting his linebacker, offensive line, and tight end rankings coming up on our upcoming podcast on Tuesday night. But yeah, happy to have you on, CJ. How you doing, dog?
Chilling, bro. Just got done with work. About to dip and dive to the low board of the list for Tuesday for the show.
Yes, sir.
Outside of that, just ready for it's rumor season, so everybody's counting down the last 2 weeks.
Hey, we get
Less
into
than two
a
weeks now.
lot of less than 2 weeks and a lot of smoke, a lot of interesting conversations. So let me tell you, let me ask you a question, just based on the fact that things go, and then after as we get closer to this, I'm probably going to keep it a little bit Seahawks centric, and then once we get past the Seahawks pick, then we can go ahead and dive into what the Chiefs have done in this mock draft, if that's good with you.
Cool.
All right, cool. So with this first pick, the Seattle Seahawks and pick 32 as the defending Super Bowl champions, I was able to take Mr. Chase Besantis,
Hmm?
Texas A&M offensive guard. So talk to me a little bit about Chase. What do you like about him? What you maybe don't like about him? Do you think that he's worth that pick at the end of the first round?
No, I mean based off like Seattle's run game, obviously, they needed to do anything as far as revamping that run game because that was really the strength of their team last year. Obviously, Kenneth Walker and Charbonnet both had great years, more so Kenneth Walker overall, but mainly because of their O line, which was a strength. And Chase, I mean, Texas A&M guy. As far as he's probably a multi guy, I think he could play both multiple positions if need be. I think he could play left or right guard if need be, whichever spot they prefer. Texas A&M had a good group this year. They ran the ball extremely well. I know Marcel Reed had a good year. He was protected very well as well. So, Chase, I think for me, as far as like pass pro or run blocking, I would probably give him a better grade as far as like pass pro if I had to pick
Mhm.
one. Decent size. I think, let me pull up his measurable so I have it memorized. Here, where is he at? Oh, yeah, there's Chase. Yeah, decent size, nothing crazy there. 6'5", about 315. Got decent arms. Probably something you would rather have longer if he's a tackle, but he's a guard. He's like 31, so
Yep.
decent arm length. But no, from what I saw on film, definitely a better pass pro than he is run blocking. Um, but I think as far as Seattle, the strength of their team being the fact that it has Sharp. That's why I'm kind of intrigued to see. I don't mind taking Chase percentage right there, but I figured, well, it's probably too early to take the running backs right there. But I'm trying to figure out what's going to be their identity of their offense because who's their OC now since Kubiak left?
Yeah, they ended up hiring Brian Fleury, who was
Fury.
I believe he was
Where'd
the
he come from?
yeah, Fleury. He was on not the for some reason I've got the idea in my head that he was on the Ram staff, and it's not. He's on the Shanahan tree. I know that, but
Gentry. Okay, okay.
um, he was on the Niners. There it is. Finally, I was like,
Niners. Okay.
it's NFC West team, and I can't remember. He was on the Niners. He was their
He was
run
their
game
run game
coordinator last year, and then
Okay,
also
okay.
I think he's been their tight ends coach. I think for a little bit here.
No, I think yeah, if Seattle's going to stick to their strengths of their team last year, which is running the football, it'd be interesting to see who they're going to draft at running back. Obviously, since Kenneth Walker's gone, but no, but since this is definitely a good run block or a good pass blocking guard, obviously. I think it's going to be interesting to see what system he fits in best because obviously he has good short area quickness for an interior lineman. Obviously, 6'5" being as good height. Only weakness I would say is probably just a little bit of late hands. The arm length isn't crazy, like I said, 31 and like 3/4, so it's not the best. Um, I think his run blocking could use work, just aggressiveness, and I think that goes along with having short arms. You got to get up in the guys faster, but definitely can use a better base at times. But I think as far as being a good pass pro, he has good feet. He is quick, so I think that does help as far as his pass blocking. So good core strength, good low center of gravity, good hands. Texas A&M overall had a good line for me, so he was definitely one of the better guys in that group. One of the better games I think he played was well him personally. The O line overall didn't play great. But that Miami game when they were playing guys like obviously Bain and Messidor, he actually
We
played
were
pretty well
reducing
that
down
game.
a lot in that game.
Yeah, so that's what I'm saying. He got a lot of work that game as well. So yeah, I think he's a good prospect. That's not a bad pick for sure. Obviously, a lot of people don't think linemen are sexy picks, but they need all the help they can get in the trenches for sure. Especially when you got guys like Cross and other young investments they made in that offensive line. I don't mind that pick at all. Who else was available, if you don't mind me asking, when they got to 32?
Yeah, absolutely. And funny enough, so remember I had asked you guys that question on the podcast this week and asked, if these players are available after the first round, would you be excited about X, Y, and Z? So, some of the notable names, I should say, Avion Terrell, Denzel Boston,
Hmm.
Katie McDonald, Emmanuel McNeil Warren, Christian Miller, Gabe Yaka, Zion Young. Um, Caleb Banks, Chris Johnson, to name a few of the kind of notable guys who were still available on the board there when I did end up going with Chase.
No, I think yeah, that's probably the best pick. I mean, Terrell was good player. I don't know if that's really the pick they want to make it 32 if you're Seattle. No, yeah, I mean, anytime you invest in the offensive line, Sam Darnold obviously had a good year. Probably one of the better years of his career, even though he just came off an MVP type season in Minnesota. But in the biggest moments, probably the better year, mainly because he performed in the playoffs when he needed him to. So, but no, I like Chase as a good pick. Obviously, you're building the strength of that team, which is to run the football, and hopefully the OC that they brought over from the Niners carries that on. So, anytime you're building the trenches, you want to continue to run the football, whoever, regardless of who the running back is. I think it's a good decision to make. So, no, a decent athlete, good size. You would love for his arms to be longer. But I think Chase is a solid pick. I mean, most people would probably want to take an athlete there, but anytime you're investing in the O line, I'm never going to get mad at that, especially when you're trying to protect Sam as much as possible. And probably he's going to have to be leaned on more this year, you would think, especially since guys like Kenneth Walker and Charbonnet probably won't be there to start the season. So,
Yeah, absolutely. So, as we've been talking, a few picks have gone off the board. Daryl Jackson Jr., Grayson Holden to the Chicago Bears there,
Hmm.
Derek Moore to the 49ers, R. Mason Thomas to the Texans as well. The Texans just hammering defensive line early into this draft. And then Traden Stukes, a draft crush of mine, certainly one of my guys as far as this is concerned. An awesome defensive back prospect out of Arizona goes to the Chicago Bears, which I think will help a lot. So I highlighted a few of those guys. Mason Thomas would have been an option for me at 64 to add to this room, certainly to try and replace Boye Mafia. I think would have made a lot of sense in the edge aspect of it. Trina Stukes maybe not as much, just because they really do have a set nickel answer as far as Nick Wari is concerned. However, the good news is, as far as that aspect, is Mason Thomas goes to the Texans, even taking a guy that I would have been targeting off the board. Texans were a landmine in between here and 64, because Jadarian Price does still have a chance to get to 64. The Rams, Broncos, and Falcons are in between us and that pick. And honestly, 64, you were able to get Jadarian Price, a guy that I was considering at 32. My personal opinion, I think that
That's
would
good
be well
value.
founded. Yeah,
Yeah.
CJ, how do you feel about that aspect?
No, Jadarian, that's good value to get him there. Because I mean, most people have him as RB2 on the boards. Like you said, 64 is a good spot, given the fact he was probably a day one pick most of the round that started. R. Mason goes to 59 to Houston. Houston, yeah, you are. They are hammering on D lineman. My goodness.
Yeah, so they
Um,
they I don't know if you had caught it or not, or was able to see it, but the Texans in the first round, or I should say, with their first pick in the second round, I think is correct, right? Yeah, because they have
mhm.
38. They ended up taking Christian Miller out of yeah, yeah. So their first three picks was Max Yannichor, who I love. The fact that you add him to the right tackle position out opposite of Ariata Ursa is going to be a lot of fun. Christian Miller on the defensive line, and then also our Mason Thomas. I mean, those are three really good trench picks for the Houston Texans there to start this
Facts.
round.
Absolutely. You got to build in your strength, especially on D linemen. You don't know how long. Obviously, Will Anderson's a staple. He's one of the best in the league, but obviously, the Hunter's getting a little older, so you want to give more guys, more youth. Because I think Barnett left for them, right? Or did he have 1 year left in the deal? I don't know if I thought he left in free agency. I know they had a couple other guys in their D line room that were getting up in age as far as like contracts and stuff. So no, getting younger guys, getting more speed. R. Mason Thomas is a dog, and you get him to come off the edge opposite of Will or Daniil Hunter. That's just another asset. And like you said, Christian Miller, it's a day one starter. You could throw him in the rotation. He's going to play right away. And you get a immediate guy that can start at right tackle for you. So, no, those are three good picks. And that's probably the best thing they should do, because they have weapons. They need to build the trenches more so offensively than defensively. But yeah, that's a good option for them for sure. I like that pick. And Stukes for the Bears. Yep, love that. Especially their secondary. Yep, Dunker. Wow. Dunker is one of my favorite linemen in the draft. He will go to the Chargers. Now we got to see him twice a year. I'm going to hate that. Uh, who else do I see on here? Darrell Jackson going to Jacksonville. That's a good pick for them. Let me see. That's probably one of my draft crusts as far as day two guys. DMac will tell you. I would hope he would fall to anywhere past 40 so the Chiefs can grab him. But I would definitely love to get Darrell Jackson in the building for sure. And then who is this? Stukes here. Derek Moore from Michigan to the Niners. Solid pick. They need all the help they can get as far as getting to the quarterback for sure. Because after both, it gets kind of dicey for the Niners. And then who else do they have on here? Grace Halton. Yeah. Oklahoma. Okay. Yeah. I think the Bears got they got a steal in Stooks right there. He's a good player. I liked a lot of DBs from Arizona secondary. They had a very very underrated secondary this year. I know their team didn't necessarily win a lot of games, but they had multiple guys in their secondary that I liked, especially at corner, even more so safety. So anybody that you got from that group this year is probably going to be more than like an impact player for you for sure. They gave a lot of QBs issues in the Big 12 this year, so that was a very good secondary to watch.
Yeah, they did, to say the least. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay, good. Just wanted to make sure. But yeah, no, I mean, the Arizona definitely had a really good secondary for a reason, and Stooks was a big piece of that as well. Yeah, You mentioned obviously Daryl Jackson Jr. Probably a crush of both of ours as far as that is concerned. The length that he plays with, and gives you a little bit more than just your standard kind of big, space eating nose tackle from that standpoint. I think there's better movement skills that can indicate, hey, this guy can get after the passer probably better with some teaching too. So definitely a nice pick there.
Absolutely.
Get this.
Probably. After Caleb Banks, he's probably my favorite D tackle in this class. I just love the get off he has, explosiveness, the violence he plays with. But my favorite thing about him is just the long arms. And obviously, the Chiefs and more so Joe Cullen, our D line coach, are known for batting the ball down, getting hands up on third down when you're not be able to get to the quarterback, which was one of our weaknesses last year, unfortunately. So a guy like Darrell Jackson, that length, you put him next to a guy like Omar or Chris Jones, that's like a match made in heaven. So I love his get off, love the violence, love the hands, and like you said, he has the ability to not only stop the run, he can give you juice in the pass rush downs as well, and that's few and far in between in this class. So I think Darrell would be a steal for any team to get him, and that the fact that the Jaguars got him, that's a great value for them, especially putting him next to Trayvon Walker and Josh Allen, or Josh Hines Allen, and been letting guys rush the quarterback on third down. That's a good move for them for sure.
Yeah, and boy, howdy, this would be an interesting pick. Los Angeles Rams take Ty Simpson with pick number 61 in the second
Boy,
round.
oh boy,
Hoo-wee.
I got the team
So
right, just number wrong.
yeah, they waited a little bit on that one, boy. Oh, and there it is. Oh,
Darian
that's
Price,
annoying. Oh,
and he would
I
go to
knew
the
it.
Broncos. Fuck.
Ah, man, I knew it was gonna happen. I said, look, there's two areas here where I feel like I'm gonna end up
Either
getting
them or
sniped.
Seattle. Yeah.
Yeah, that one's tough. That one hurts.
Now we got to
That
say
one hurts a
another
little.
running back we like go to Denver.
Yeah. Yeah, because they got us with RJ Harvey last year, man. That one hurts.
Exactly. We don't want to see nothing good for the Broncos.
No.
And like I was just when you were walking, I was talking about Dunker as one of my favorite linemen this year as far as guards, and he would go to the Chargers, like of all teams. Like, come on.
Hmm.
Ty Simpson going to LA. He can't ask for a better spot. Get to learn behind Stafford for the next year. That's a nice pick.
Let's see if I can put that in there. Here we go. Yeah, I mean, look, I think that it's a good pick. That's
For
why I
sure.
wanted him to fall,
Yeah.
to say the least. There.
They need to get faster. I like it.
Yeah.
They made some good secondary investments last year, so that's a good follow up pick for sure. Yeah. What's next?
Yeah, that
Seattle's
hurts
up
double
again.
as a Chiefs fan picking for the Seahawks.
I know that's
That one
very
that one
awkward.
hurts it up right there. That's tough. It's tough to see.
Like, do I want to do the right thing? We got to see these guys.
Yeah, really.
Let me see.
So I'm gonna see here. So with Jadarian Price going off the board there, Anthony Hill off the board at pick 63. Now we are officially on the board. So now we've got some interesting options. Um, so I'll tell you, for me personally, when I look at this, CJ, like I mentioned, possible DBs, possible wide receivers, possible edges as far as that is concerned. Again, happen up with Mafe.
Yep.
Ultimately, Anthony Hill Jr. going off the board kind of takes the last linebacker that I really loved on day two as far as a possibility for my personal opinion. I don't know if you agree with that or feel that way too. But so now the fact that we kind of sit here, Jeremy Bernard is the top wide receiver available right now. Like I really like Bryce Lance, especially in this range, I should say, also makes sense. So that being said, I don't know if I love the fit, given the fact that Shaheed is back. They kind of have the deep threat
Yeah,
aspect
so
kind
he
of
came back.
well taken care of with him and Torrey Horton. So I wouldn't say there.
Yep, and Horton, man, I forgot about him. He barely played.
I,
Yeah, he got hurt. Yeah. Oh
I
man.
like, yeah, absolutely. I like Mike Washington Jr., but I'm just not taking him here at 64, in my personal opinion. Um, the David Davidson, I should say, Igbenison out of Ohio State is certainly really good. Devin Moore also really good as well. Definitely an option from that standpoint. Um, I'm interested to see now. The thing I'll ask you this. So for me, it would be Danny Dennis Sutton uh, or probably Davison out of Ohio State, the
Yeah,
corner.
corner.
For me, I really love Danny Dickinson. I've talked about this guy a
I do.
lot. I,
He got a lot of
I think
speed.
that he is twitched up. He can come off the edge. I think he's the perfect type of immediate pass rush juice that you can add in to be able to take advantage of what else they can do on the defensive line and kind of replace what they lost in Blaine Mafe.
For sure. Yeah. Got
Yeah,
to
I think
build it. Like,
that's
same thing like Houston, building on your strength. Your strength was getting to the quarterback, and you just threw waves of guys like Leonard Williams, Byron Murphy, Mafe. The more athletes you can have, the better. So, corner would help them here, obviously, with the loss of Woolen. But I've always been a proponent, you know me, is getting to the quarterback is much more impactful than being able to cover the corner. So, I'm definitely going to go with Sutton for sure here.
So yeah, so I think that's where we're going to end up going. We're going to officially submit the pick. Danny Dennis Sutton,
We
edge out of
are
Penn
Penn
State, is
State.
going to be the pick uh, for the Seattle Seahawks. I love this kid that he can get off the edge, be able to add into that room after losing Boye Mafe in free agency, being able to attack from that standpoint. I like the way that we can add him as far as that room. And again, look, this Seattle Seahawks defense being able to get faster is a big thing of what you can be able to do, and being able to affect the quarterback. So I liked it. I still like the way that the running back board is followed. I would love to get Darian Price in that standpoint. But I still think there are running backs that we'll end up get to our next pick here and feel good about. So we'll see what ends up going moving forward as far as that is concerned too.
For sure. Jadarian would have been a steal right there. That'd have been a great combo to lead in from Kenny Walker leaving.
Yeah, absolutely. So a little bit of the Seahawks reset. I'll just say that. So we have taken Chase Basantis, fill in the right guard position, taking over for Anthony Bradford in the first round, as far as that is concerned. And then immediately right after that, at pick 64 for the Seahawks, we're going to end up taking Danny Dennis Sutton, edge out of Penn State, a guy that I really like on day two. Go ahead, backfill what that edge rotation is going to look like. And we've seen this both with the Eagles and the Seahawks last year. If you really want to be an impact defense, you have to have a line shift as far as the pass rushers that you can use to get after the passer. And I think that Danny Dennis Sutton very well fills that out from that standpoint. So we'll see. Still looking at running backs, still looking at adding to the defensive back room, both spots that I still like as far as the rest of this draft. And we have one pick here that will end up ending the entirety of the draft stream to close it out here later on as well. Any thoughts as far as that is concerned, CJ?
No, I think those are two good picks. And trenches over. I know skill players are important, but obviously when you're building a football team inside out, it's always the best way to go. So I agree with it. Always get your edges and your linemen early, and you can find receivers and DBs later. That's usually how the most teams build rosters. So good with me. Let's see. How many total picks does Seattle have this year? That's a good question.
Only four.
Before, yeah, I was about. That's a possible trade back candidate for sure.
Yeah, it definitely was. And so we did have an opportunity to trade back in the first round. Let me go in and double check to make sure that I have that correct deal that was on the board before I just gonna go off and say it. And also, I'll bring the draft actually back up so you guys can see Chris Brazil to the Miami Dolphins, which is very fascinating as far as that is
Hmm.
concerned. Goes off the board with a lot of juice there. Keontae Scott right afterwards to the Tennessee Titans, cornerback out of Miami as well. Let me see. Let's pull
Mm-hmm.
this up. They go back to back right there. Um, Pulling it up. Yeah, so we ended up having a option on the board for 43 and 94 for 32. And again, that's one that I definitely thought about long and hard. And I wanted to see if I can get an extra day three pick in there, but they decided to decline as far as that was concerned. So not mad at it as well. So that was kind of the talks that were happening behind the scenes too.
Oh yeah, if I'm them, I'm trying to get as many picks as possible for sure. But obviously, you got to get the best value you can. I mean, they got here
Yeah,
looking at 80. Where's the next pick after 64?
96, right? I
90.
think it was.
Oh yeah, they got to get something. That's a long time to be off the board. So got to get something in between there for sure.
Yeah, so yeah, picking out 32, 64, 96, and 188 that was acquired from the Browns in a trade there. So not a lot of picks, and in some respects, they have kind of quote unquote mortgaged the future for for what this has looked like. But certainly, when you win a championship, it's always worth it, right? To say the
Absolutely.
least. So did a little reset, going to see where things are kind of going as we look at these guys coming off the board as well. See if I can grab this so you guys can see a little bit better. There we go. Um, but yeah, I mean, like I've talked about, I really do love Danny Jensen, man. I think that he gets after the passer very well. Um, and he can defend the run if you need him to. But when he comes into a situation at the end of the second round with Seattle and he doesn't necessarily have to, then it's all the more better, in my personal opinion. Um, so let's talk about the Chiefs. Obviously, we are we are both Chiefs fans. We do cover the Chiefs on a consistent basis, week in and week out. CJ, in this draft, the Kansas City Chiefs at number 9 ended up sticking and picking Jamar McCoy, and this was after Bain, Tate Downs, Bailey, Styles, all those guys end up going off the board in the top 8 and kind of staring down the barrel as far as Jamar McCoy, Mansur Delane, Francis Mayoga, Kenyon Sadiq, Makai Lemon as possible options, Jordan Tyson as well as possible options as well. And so ended up going with Jamal McCoy, in my opinion, is the right pick at that spot. Even though if you wanted to go Makai Lemon, I completely understand. But the upside, the athleticism, I would bet on that 2024 tape as far as Jamal McCoy now that we've seen him work out. And so, any thoughts about that standpoint from the Chiefs picking him at number 9?
Oh, that's the best corner on the board for me. So that's a place of need, and we've shown we can take and develop corners whether we take them early or late. It's a strength of our team, especially our DB coach Dave Merritt and Spags have done a great job developing most of their DBs, especially corners. So probably would have looked at an opportunity to trade back if it was available, if it made sense for both of us. But outside of that, no, our holy trinity was gone with Bain, Bailey and Downs, all those guys were gone, and Tate as well, like you said. So no, can't be mad at taking the best corner on the board after DG gave his rankings and tell the truth. He has Jamar McCoy at CB1, and I trust his eyes, I trust the film, and like you said, 24 was better than 25 Tate, but the athleticism and the traits are there. So if you're banking on those, then you're gonna get a hell of a player if he turns out to be the guy we think he is. So never mad at taking a guy, especially for a place of need that you need, especially after McDuffie and Jalen Watson were both let go in free agency. So
Yeah, absolutely.
not mad about that at all. Would have thought. Was there anybody that did want to make a move with us, or was it not even a possibility?
Well, that would be a question for Mr. Price Carter, who actually is, I
About
think,
the
making
DM
a deal.
price. Was it? Didn't
Yeah.
nobody want to talk to us? Like Miami at 13, Baltimore at 14. Nobody wanted to move up. You
Yeah,
know.
might want to ask it, but he's actually making a deal here for the Eagles' third round pick, so he's moving up here at 68. So, oh no, moving up for 98. Let me see. Hold on, give me 1 second. I'll tell you guys in 2 seconds what this deal that is currently happening as we speak. Hasn't showed up yet, all right, so we'll see what ends up happening there. But Chiefs are making a move to that perspective. But yeah, I would agree as far as what the best option there would have been. I think that's kind of just the way you have to go if the draft ends up moving to that standpoint. Question I got for okay, so talked about what happens at number 9. Fast forward, get to pick number 29. Casey Concepcion, Omar Cooper Jr. off the board. Denzel Boston still on the board, though. Um, TJ Parker, Celtic Falk, Zion Young, all still on the board. Emmanuel McNeil Warren also still on the board after you go. Jamar McCoy in the first round. Price Carter ends up going with TJ Parker, which is an excellent pick in my personal opinion. Only Denzel Boston would be kind of in a close similar tier. Maybe Zion Young at a half tier below that as far as what pick I would love at 29. TJ
Hmm.
Parker solves that edge immediately as a starter across from George Karlaftis. So talk to me a little bit about TJ Parker being able to come in and be the pick at 29.
Oh, I love everything about TJ. Love the violence. He plays with the hands. He plays with heavy hands as well. A guy that can play inside and outside versatility as well. Like you said, immediate day starter next to George. Somebody that can come in and get to the quarterback. Does have good bend as well. And usually we kind of tend to take guys that are under the age of 25 so you can get that max value out of them, especially when you want to get to that third contract. So only guys at that pick would have been outside of TJ for me would have been like you said, either Casey Concepcion or maybe Caleb Banks if most of our guys were gone. But no, I love TJ.
Uh, CJ, can you hear me? Hello, hello. We lost CJ there for a second. We'll see if we can get it back. See if we can get CJ back up here in a second here. Choo-choo. We had a few picks go off the board here. Like I mentioned, Keontae Scott, AJ Halsey goes to the Las Vegas Raiders. Max Clare goes to the Philadelphia Eagles. Keith Abney goes to the Houston Texans. So a little bit of DBs kind of flying off the board here with the tight end in between as well. Chiefs did end up trading for 68. It looks like they're going to be trading for the later round, third round pick. So something to keep an eye out for that may happen later on. We'll see if we can get CJ back up in here in a little bit as well. Keith Abney to Texas, man. Texas just building out that defense, just absolutely making it stout, to say the least. Let's see if we can, yeah, we can see that there. Yeah, I mean that's going to be rough to play against as far as that defense. I wish everybody the best of luck trying to play against that defense, man. It's going to be insane. We did have a trade as well that did ended up occurring. Let me see if I can pull this up right here. Miami traded 75 and 151 to the Cardinals for 65. So they're going to be picking down there at 75 when we get there to it. The Bills are coming up as a part of that trade at 73 that they had done previously with New Orleans as well. And Mr. Oscar Delp goes off the board to the Cleveland Browns. And look, Oscar Delp is somebody that's been a riser in the draft process. Started off in day three, people just betting on what they could do, kind of from a what they can be able to do from the inline blocking perspective, and then the athleticism as far as the receiving perspective. And it's an interesting dynamic. David Njoku moves on in free agency. Now Oscar Delp comes in, inline blocker to go with Carl Friend Jr., more of the move tight end and his receiving chops as far as that's concerned. Really nice 1-2 combination. Allows you to be able to get into some more 12 personnel as far as that's concerned. I do like that aspect too. And I think that makes a lot of sense for what they want to do. Connor Lew, center out of Auburn, ends up going to the Washington Commanders' need for the interior offensive line, to say the least there. Let's see if we can hear. All right, there we go. Not bad. Getting some DMs about, hey, we want to get some trades working. So we'll see if we end up working anything out as far as that's concerned. Dude, shoot them DM. Shoot DM. See if we get some trade stuff working as well. Um, Kind of going to the Commanders, kind of interesting. See if we can get my guy Manny on, and we may end up talking about that pick and what they've done in the draft to this point. Bengals picking here at 803 again, really 803, picking here at 72 specifically. And they again started off with Mansour Delane and CJ Allen. CJ Allen, which in my opinion is a really good 1-2 punch to add to their defensive line or defensive room, I should say, in general, that they very much need at two spots, linebacker and certainly corner, as far as that standpoint is concerned. So, really good start to the draft, I'll say, for the Cincinnati Bengals picking there. I was trying to see. Okay, there you go. But yeah, appreciate you guys for coming by. We're actually kind of flying through the day two here. I'll be honest with you guys. We're into the third round. We're about getting approaching midway through the third round after the Seahawks got sniped with Jadarian Price off the board to the Broncos, I should say. Dennis Sutton going 64 to the Seattle Seahawks as well. I'm good to see what's on the board available to us at 96 if we end up sticking and picking there. As we wait for the Bengals to make their selection. And there it is, Zachariah Branch. Off the board, Georgia wide receiver. I'll fully admit, not necessarily my favorite guy in this class, just for what he brings to the table. But you want to use him as a gadget guy and be able to create a lot of things that not necessarily are reliant upon Jamar Chase and T. Higgins. Okay, I guess I can be talked into that to an extent, but I would rather Jeremy Bernard just be kind of a do it all type guy, or you go out there and really like have some fun with Elijah Surratt, who could be a power slot, and that's a really nice combination with T. Higgins and Jam Price, and he's on my mind. Jamar Chase, in my personal opinion, I would probably like that fit a little bit more Surratt than Zachariah Branch, but hey, end up going wide receiver and adding the guy out of Georgia to the Bengals. So this one is a Buffalo Bills pick. We'll see ultimately where they end up wanting going as far as this pick is concerned. Um, it's going to see if we can get either CJ back in here. We're going to get Manny in here in a second. Let's give it a little bit here. Like if you want to be explosive, I understand it. If you want to be explosive, I kind of get the Zachariah Branch thing, but it's a little too gadgety for me. I am very wary of the smaller gadget guy. It's just not the thing for me. That's just me though. Not that I'm not gonna say he's insane or anything like that, but just not the thing for me. My life is over. We're going to see if we hear back here. As we wait on to see what the Buffalo Bills are going to do with that pick 73 as well. We were talking a little bit about the Chiefs draft. We can kind of go through and see maybe what some of the other teams in the AFC in the AFC in the NFC West have specifically done. Keontae Scott for the Cardinals here on day two so far. Blake Miller was their pick on day one, in addition to Ruben Bay Jr. Ruben Bay Jr., Blake Miller, Keontae Scott. It's pretty solid three picks, I would say. Ruben Bain's awesome. I do think that he may ultimately be my number one overall player in the class. Truthfully, I do feel like that's a possibility when I do end up, finalizing that as far as that is concerned. Certainly, Keontae Scott versatility on the back end. They kind of need that, in my personal opinion. Blake Miller being able to be opposite of Paris Johnson Jr. makes a lot of sense for the offensive line too. And then we're talking about, let's go ahead and talk about the 49ers. Casey Concepcion pick 20 after they trade up with the Green Bay Packers. Makes a lot of sense for their wide receiver room with Mike Evans and Ricky Pearsall. A good compliment, in my personal opinion, from that perspective. That second pick in the second round, Derek Moore, Michigan edge. I think it also makes sense adding to their defensive line room. Maybe not, you need somebody to be solid opposite of Bosa. So I get it. With Michael Williams being able to be an inside out guy if you need him to be. So I understand it if you want to go that way. Maybe not necessarily my favorite pick. I would obviously prefer Danny to the Sutton as far as that's concerned, or Mason Thomas. However, our Mason Thomas maybe not the best fit for what the Niners edges want to be. So you can understand that pick, but getting Casey Concepcion, Derek Moore, I would say again, pretty solid, heavily leaning to what I like about that first round pick more specifically. And then the major competition for the Seattle Seahawks in the NFC West, which is Los Angeles Rams. They're picking at 13 thanks to the Atlanta Falcons, and ultimately getting Mekhi Lemon, which is a scary addition to what they have as far as that team is concerned. So shout out to the Rams for them being able to make that pick as well. And then also Ty Simpson ends up being the Rams pick at pick 61 to develop behind Matthew Stafford and under Sean McVay, which is a not necessarily a shocker, but an interesting decision to say the least. And with that being said, we have my good friend coming on, Mr. Mander Manny. What's up, Manny? How's it going, dog?
Hey man, what's going on? What's going on? How you been?
I'm good, man. Good. I'm happy to have you on, man. We're talking a little bit of draft as far as this is concerned. I am part of the Epic Mock 2026 on the NFL Draft Professors, talking about a lot of the scouting stuff, and we've got guys from each one of the teams kind of picking for their individual team. So I'm happy to have you on. For those that do not know, Mander Manny does come on to the channel every single Friday for our Fantasy Friday kind of breakdowns, our favorite guys going into the weekend that you should be having in your lineups. And he is also a Commanders fan as well. Manny, how you doing, man?
Hey, it's one of my favorite times of the year, so I'm definitely looking forward to next week. well, 2 weeks. But this a lot going on in the next week, so I'm looking to see how things move around. It's most trade heavy. I think a lot's going to shake up. I feel like this draft isn't going to go how a lot of us are going to expect, but so that's going to be the fun part.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, we are picking in very close proximity there with you guys in the top 10 alongside of us at number seven, us there at number eight, as far as that is, or number nine, I should say, as far as that is concerned. Um, so we're for obviously, I did not necessarily make this clear to you probably before having you on. I'm technically representing the Seattle Seahawks as far as the GM is concerned. Somebody else is taking care of the Chiefs in this exercise in that standpoint. Um, we've got a little bit of time here before we get there. So, what I want to ask you is how you feel about the Commanders draft to this point. I'm then going to ask you a little bit, and then I'm going to show you a little bit more about the draft, see if there's anything that catches your eye, and then as we get closer to the Seahawks pick, we'll kind of talk about what I've done to this point as them. But as far as the Commanders are concerned, for you guys picking at number seven, ended up going Mr. Caleb Downs out of Ohio State, who, in my opinion, is the top three player in this draft with what he brings to the table as far as that is concerned. How would you feel about that pick for the Commanders if that ends up being the way it goes?
I think that would be a great fit. As far as Caleb, I agree with you. I think he's probably one of the best players, like hands down, as far as what he can bring to the field, what he can bring off the field. I think he's going to be a captain pretty soon, pretty quickly into his NFL career. As far as the fit for us, I think is probably one of the best fits for him and for us, just because of our new DC, Durante, coming from a Brian Flores system. He's still planning to implement some of the same philosophies, and then with Flores, we see how. He had Harrison Smith and Metellus there, and no offense to those guys, but those aren't exactly the premier safeties around this time. So Caleb, that's that guy. He can do a variety of things. I think versatility as far as safeties and what you can do on the back end and what you can do inside the box and near the line of scrimmage. I think that's very coveted in his defense. And I think he'll make plays all over the field. That's one of those guys we need. We're lacking playmakers on that defensive side, and I think he'll be a perfect fit.
Yeah, I definitely understand it as far as that perspective is concerned. Definitely going to help out a lot, in my personal opinion, too. Let me see if we can go ahead and grab this too. All right, there we go. All right. All right. So let's talk about what has happened in the draft kind of most recently as well. Um, by the time we were talking, Bryce Lance ended up going to the Buffalo Bills. And that would hurt my heart if he went right before the Kansas City Chiefs. The Chiefs, who had not taken a wide receiver to this point, end up taking Jeremy Bernard. Do it all wide receiver fit out of Alabama. But I will say Bryce Lance is a dream for me at the Chiefs at 74. Kamar Ramsey, Bud Clark, back-to-back safeties off the board to the Cardinals and Steelers. And then Sam Roush, tight end out of Stanford that I really like. I will say inline guy that can bring some real athleticism and juice as a pass catcher as well. So let's keep on going down as far as the Commander selection, just so we can go ahead and let you know what else they have done in this draft to this point. So after that initial first round pick ended up having a little bit of a wait, as you know, as the Commanders do. And he ended up going with Connor Liu at pick 71, offensive center. Um, he's going to be the center out of Auburn, specifically to be a starter. Talk to me a little bit about your need for center in this draft and how Connor Liu can kind of help out.
Yeah, I think after we let Tyler go, I think we kind of had a hole. Some are thinking that Adam had a plan that Adam and Dan had a plan that we're going to move Allegretti to center. He does have a little bit of experience there,
Mhm.
but at the end of the day, he's not going to be the long term solution. It's going to be looked as kind of like a band aid solution. I think he'll be a little bit okay, at least for this year. He'll do his job. But I do like what Tyler brought to us last year, so it was kind of a surprising move. I felt like our O line was one of our strengths. I definitely can get better, but I felt like it was one of our strengths, and Tyler was helping with that. But now that we do have a need for center, especially in the long term, I think that center is definitely going to be one of those positions that we'll be taking within our first
Yeah.
pick, 71. So it's going to be a little difficult, but yeah, I do love Connor. As far as a fit, I think he'll be a great fit. I think we have to go center within those first three picks. I kind of like the depth a little bit, so I wouldn't be surprised if we don't go center with our second pick, especially with the other needs that we have. So depending on who else is on the board, we could go corner, maybe wide receiver. So it's going to be tricky there because there I do like a couple centers there in that range, but then also in the third, I mean in the fourth round as well. So that's going to be tricky, but I love Connor. I do think he's one of the top centers in this class, and I think he'll be able to slide in right away. Maybe not right away. I think maybe give it a couple weeks. Probably by the bye week, he'll be able to. Um, Maybe have some starting reps. I do think
Mhm.
he's day one ready. It's just that I don't know how they feel about Allegretti, but I do think that he's going to be a long term starter.
Yeah, look, I mean, there's always going to be a little bit of trepidation when you talk about a center as a rookie coming in and being, hey, you're going to be the leader on this offensive line of sorts. As far as that's concerned, that's not to say, obviously, Larry Tunsil is a very imposing presence in that locker room, to say the least, amongst that group. I'm sure he is, but the center is supposed to be the guy that gets everybody else organized and sets the tone from that standpoint. The thing that I'll say is, you got the makeup of a guy like Connor Lew. You feel confident that he's going to be able to take those reins from day one and do that. And I think that that's something certainly to put a lot of trust and belief in from that standpoint too. So, I understand why he could be the day one starting center, and Nick Allegretti. I don't know how much you really want to trust him, though. I like him as an interior offensive lineman because of his versatility, just to give you some competent play in multiple different spots. But I think Connor Lew would be a nice little upgrade as far as that's concerned.
Agreed.
Yeah, so obviously into your offensive lineman, the fact that you end up grabbing Caleb Downs there to start off this draft. How do you feel about those two positions in the grand scheme of your big needs, and what do you feel like is the Commanders' overall needs for accomplishing as far as this draft is concerned?
I'm not going to sugarcoat it. We do have a lot of needs. So there's a variety of ways that we can go that I feel like would instantly make us better. Whether we go wide receiver corner, wide receiver safety, wide receiver center, running back wide receiver. Like there's a lot of different combos. We have a lot of needs both on the defensive side and the offensive side. So it really wouldn't surprise me. It's going to be hard for me to, be disappointed really in the route that we go. But if we like, for example, if we go Downs and Connor Lew, I think that's a great start. That's two for two for me right there. So I like this. It's really going to be hard for me to kind of be disappointed. It would have to be like an out of left field pick or maybe a risky pick that we might not agree with, but um, it's gonna be interesting.
Yeah, and interesting to say the least here. Um, So we've got a few picks that have kind of gone off the board here. We've got a little mini run on tight ends, I would say, with both, like we mentioned earlier, Sam Roush going off the board, Max Clear, Oscar Delp. Definitely, this third round feels like it's going to be a hey, do you like any of these tight ends? Go get one type of feeling as well. Michael Trigg from Baylor goes there to the Jacksonville Jaguars. Two wide receivers, Malachi Fields and Antonio Williams. They're going to the Ravens and Vikings, respectively. Antonio Williams, a very interesting decision to go with him. Kind of a little bit of overlap as far as Mr. Jordan Addison is concerned, but still enough versatility, I think, that you can get away with it there as far as Jordan Addison, from my personal opinion, is concerned. But again, you have the question marks of if you can rely on Addison, and that's the reason why it makes kind of sense to be able to target a wide receiver for Mr. Kyler Murray to have a brand new weapon. I feel like Kyler Murray to the Minnesota Vikings is just one of the most underrated things talked about. Like this is, I understand why people are down on him, but this is a legitimately solid starting quarterback with upside for more, going to a place where we've seen people that were even more cast off as far as the quarterback position is concerned turn in really good seasons. When you're talking about the Minnesota Vikings, so. Shout out to Kyler Murray. I think he's gonna have himself a really good year this upcoming season. We should be having a Seahawks content creator here from across the pond joining up here in a little bit as we closer to the Seahawks and kind of talk about that up until that point too. But yeah, I mean, so like we can go ahead and do a little bit of a quick scroll. Um, can you see the screen, Manny?
Yeah, yeah, I can see it.
Yeah. So I just if you want to point out anything kind of here, I'll start off with the top 15 that really catches your eye and says, "Whoa, this is kind of a crazy pick that you weren't expecting," and we'll kind of take it chunk at a chunk and see if anything stands out to you.
Mm. Let me see here. Okay, the Giants trading up for Sonny. Okay.
Mhm.
I mean,
Yep.
maybe if they feel
The
like
Giants traded a future second round pick. I'm sorry to secure the services of Sonny Styles.
future second. Okay. I mean, I guess for a guy like Sonny, it's not, that's not too costly. I feel like that's good value. I guess they were just worried about maybe Tennessee going Sonny there, because I do think that he'll probably be available at 5 for them, without moving. But yeah, I guess it depends on the noise around Tennessee, to see where they're leaning. I feel like they've, like us, they're in a boat where they have a lot of needs and they could go a couple of different ways. So it's going to be interesting to see what everybody thinks that they're going to do, because that's kind of what dictates what trades really happen. They feel like if the inclination is that Tennessee's going to maybe leaning towards Downs or Bain, it might cause a couple teams to move up to that 3 spot. And 3 is, I think that's going to be the prime spot for trades to start getting. I guess for phone calls to start coming in. I guess it takes 2 to tango, but I think that a lot of calls are going to be coming at 3, depending on, especially what the Jets do.
Yeah, absolutely. Um, so taking it out of the top 15 as far as that's concerned, let's go ahead and go 16 through 32. Any of these picks kind of stand out to you as a little bit shocking or interesting that end up happening?
Let's see. I do like a couple of these fits, like Tyson to the Jets. I feel like a lot of people, comp them to Garrett Wilson, and then having going from just one talented wide receiver to two talented wide receivers. I think that's an instant booster there. I know Gino's not going to be the long term solution, but depending on if they can get their guy, either next this year or next year, I think that's a good core to grow with. Let's see. Oh, KC to San Fran. I feel like that's another great fit. I feel like they could go either KC or Omar if both are on the board for them. But that's either guy is literally perfect for San Fran. I do kind of like Cooper's ability fit more with San Fran than KC. But I feel like they're both special guys when you put the ball in their hands. And KC can get open in a heartbeat. So I feel like that's great. It's just I like Cooper's ability to make plays. Both at the catch point and after the catch, which is pretty valuable in the Shanny offense. So that's going to be nice. Peter Woods is a guy I feel like he some before last year people were thinking he would go top 10. So I think that's great value
Mhm.
for the Chargers that do need a D tackle. Let's see. What else? Dallas going Malachi. Okay, that's interesting. I wouldn't like that just because we would have to play him twice a year, but I do love that for Malachi. Let's see, and then Colton. Shout out Colton. I think that would be a great pick for Miami there.
Yeah, I think that's pretty fair. I'm hearing the conversations that are kind of happening as well in my ear as well. Yeah, I mean, I said that when the pick ended up happening. That Malachi Lawrence pick there for the Cowboys is certainly one that I find to be very intriguing from that standpoint too, as well. All right,
Yeah.
we do have a friend. Here we go. We'll go ahead and bring him up onto stage, Mr. Peter Quinn. How's it going, man?
All right, not too bad, thanks. How are you?
I'm doing well. For those that do not know, we have Peter Quinn on here. Is a Seattle Seahawks fan. Happy to have him on here for that big mock, a part of the Seattle Seahawks War Room. Obviously, had the live stream last night, and now into day three, or I should say, round three and day two of this live stream. Man, how are you doing?
Yeah, really good. Looking forward to chatting through some of the prospects here. You've been smashing it out the park so far with the first couple of picks. So yeah, really looking forward to kind of going through that as well. Yeah, it's been it's a great event, isn't it? Great chance for all, kind of all of us to really get to know each other and to chat about a few of these different prospects as well. It's fantastic.
Yeah, absolutely. And Frieder, this is my friend Manny. He's also on the stream as well. He's a Commanders fan, so I've been talking through a little bit of things that have been happening, both the Commanders and then also throughout the entirety of this draft to this point as well. So, Peter, let's go ahead and hit a reset. So, we got to the end of the first round as far as this mock draft was concerned, and actually, we could pick it up back here personally as well. I was a little bit banted about if I wanted to try and trade back, and certainly some of the other options that were there to be able to pick their 32. Ended up landing on a guy, Chase Pasantis, that I think has a chance to truly go at 32 in the draft because of his ability at guard and really the strength that he plays with, and also the versatility for what they want to do with the offense moving forward. And obviously, there is a need. I think that the ability to upgrade over Anthony Bradford is certainly something that Seattle Seahawks had a lot of frustrations with last year, and certainly would be interested in doing as far as this draft is concerned. So, tell me a little bit about Chase Pasantis, how you feel about him to being the pick at 32, and based on how the board kind of fell and some of the best available as well, if you were, kind of in support of that pick.
Yeah, I like this. I'd when I did some Seahawks mock drafts with Jim from Draft Professors on a podcast a couple of months ago, it was a pick that I kind of kept coming back to because I think for me, I was saying earlier today, actually, I missed the days when it was possible to get Vega Ioane sometimes at that 32 pick. He
Yeah,
used to
right.
occasionally fall there. It's just not happening now, is it? So he's obviously, for me, I think he's the best guard in the class. And I then, behind him would probably be my next guy. I see Emmanuel Pregnon went fairly soon afterward. I think they're kind of a fairly consensus top three for the most part in terms of the true guards in this class. Bisontis, really good player, and I think of those three, they're the ones who would be an immediate upgrade on Anthony Bradford, as you mentioned. I think I'm not a Bradford hater as much. I think that like, don't get me wrong, the guy gets beat quickly sometimes, and it makes for a really bad low light reel, I suppose. But I think that there's maybe something to work with there. So that's why I think that if a guard in the first round at this spot at 32, then I think that's one of the places that you'll actually get an upgrade. I think if perhaps you look at it even for this 96th pick or onto day three, I think you're struggling to get somebody that the Seahawks would look at as an upgrade over Bradford. But I think Bisontis really works in that regard. I think that he's someone that could be plug and play, and I think that he could play to a high level really early process. So that would be really cool. I really like that pick. I agree. I think that a lot of the time I try to trade back out of that 32 spot. The problem is obviously in order to trade back, you need somebody to want to trade up to the 32 spot, and I think that sometimes that's an issue as well, just with the way this class is. It's kind of a lot of the similar talent level potentially around the end of the first to the all the way to kind of the middle of the second round. Potentially makes a difference as well. So it can sometimes be a struggle to get that kind of trade value at that spot. And yeah, I think that if you're going to second pick, then Bisontis is a guy who can upgrade that O-line straight away. And we saw the impact that a good guard can make with the impact that Gray's able had for the Seahawks this year to kind of bring their O-line to from a real weakness to kind of middle of the pack, bordering on pushing towards being actually a strength for the Seahawks, which is bizarre to say years of really bad lane play.
Yeah, to say the least. And then look, that's the beauty of it. When you rebuild the trenches, that sets you up for success, championship level success. And like you mentioned, the Zabel pick certainly did that from that perspective. The work that you guys have done on the entirety of the defensive line, making sure that there is a line shift to get after the passer while still being able to defend the run at a high level. That is something that is a hallmark of Mike McDonald's defensive scheme. It makes it really everything that he wants to do possible from that perspective too. So along those lines, as I said about my next pick, we ended up going down the board as well. I will be full disclosure, did get sniped until when they took Jadaria Price of the Denver Broncos. However, fortunately, I do have a draft crush on Danny Didden, edge out of Penn State. I feel like this is a pick that a lot of people would say, hey, is edge really that big of a need? I understand why. Ultimately, in my opinion, you can never have enough pass rushers. Danny Didden, I believe, is one that could be a very good one in this draft. And ultimately, after Boye Mafe moves on in free agency, you'd be able to backfill that position in that rotation very easily. He's a guy that can defend the run, but ultimately the fact that you can really have him pin his ears back in really good situations on a consistent basis and work off of what else that these guys have. Another draft crush of mine, Byron Murphy II, who I had pegged as a breakout this entire before the year, ended up having that type of breakout year, in my opinion, for the Seattle Seahawks. Obviously, Leonard Williams coming over, DeMarcus Lawrence, who was a super underrated acquisition for the Seattle Seahawks, in my personal opinion, as well. Now, Danny Didden add to that rotation to get after the passer. Talk to me a little bit about this pick. How do you feel about it added to the Seattle Seahawks defense?
Yeah, I think for starters, Price is one that often gets kind of paired to Seattle around this range. There's nothing worse than getting sniped like that. Yeah, I think that the Dennis pick, I really like it, though. He's a kind of pretty well-rounded player. He's not necessarily got the kind of immediate wow factor that kind of Zion Young with his power profile or Malachi Lawrence's speed. There's maybe not something there that kind of jumps off kind of the profile straight away. But when you look at the film, he's just a really, really solid edge prospect. I really like that pick. I think he's somebody that the Seahawks would like, really high motor as well. You see him get late in plays a lot of the time, working through, even when initially it doesn't seem like he's kind of winning the rep. But yeah, he's a guy that I really like. I think that edge is a really underrated need. Almost always in my drafts at the moment, I'm looking to take an edge either at 32 or 64. I think it's a position where the Seahawks need long-term upside, because you look at Uchenna Nwosu has had injury issues throughout his career, is getting a little bit older. DeMarcus Lawrence, there was talk of him retiring this off-season. I think it's maybe quite likely that happens within the next year or two. And Derek Hall is in a contract year as well. We saw they let Boye Mafe go because they weren't kind of prepared to match the big offer that the Bengals gave him. So I wonder as well if it's the edge room that obviously kind of played a major role in winning that Super Bowl. I think it could potentially look very, very different even within the next 18 months. So I think that drafting somebody in the first 2 rounds who has the potential to be a real contributor for a long time is a massive battle. And Dennis Sutton fits the bill. Yeah, I think he's a really nice prospect. I've certainly when you miss, if at 32, I saw that Malachi had gone by that point, for example. I can't remember. Keldrick Falk ended up here as well. He's one that kind of can quite often disappear in the mid to late round 1 range. So I think there's a lot of guys here that if you miss out at the end of round 1, Dennis Sutton's a great pick to come in here at the end of round 2 as well. I see Derek Moore, R. Mason Thomas kind of almost dropped this far as well. That would have been an interesting. I don't know how it would have been for you. For me, I think that's a decision for me to try to weigh up for Mason Thomas or Dennis Sutton, actually. So that's an interesting one. But yeah, really like that Dennis Sutton pick, though. I think that the Seahawks like to have a rounded edge room to keep the guys fresh. They like to have some who can really be stout against the run. And I think at the moment they're also looking for. It wouldn't surprise me, even as a kind of undrafted free agent priority, is just a speed rusher, maybe an undersized guy, just to kind of give it something a little bit different. As well, they kind of talked about quick wins. Mike McDonald's mentioned that was one of the things that Mafe could provide at times, that they're really looking to replace, and Dennis Sutton as well. Like I said, he can get the kind of high effort plays that are maybe slightly longer developing, but you can also get those quick wins as well. So, yeah, I've that Dennis Sutton pick, and I think coming out of those first two picks with a potential starting guard and a guy who's going to make a real impact as a pass rusher is a massive plus. So, great job with the first two picks.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And like you talked about, kind of Danny did his sudden and again being a part of the rotation. That he has the motor to finish plays after other guys have gotten disruption. And I think that he can also find the ability to have those quick wins as well to create disruption himself. And then when you're a part of a good ecosystem rushing the passer, I think that's a big piece of it is from that standpoint too. And he's a guy that was getting a lot of hype, kind of maybe about a month ago as far as the draft process was concerned, about people were like, oh, maybe this guy's climbing into the possible first round range. I was like, it's a little bit rich for my blood. It's, even though I do truly love him sailing in and being a second rounder, in my personal opinion, in that range makes a little bit more sense just from the standpoint of he doesn't have to be that number one guy from day one. When you talk about maybe compared to some of the upside that a guy like a TJ Parker or even a Keldrick Folk, if you could teach him how to rush the passer, it can bring to the table too. So that's really the big thing for me. So to get him here, I think was a really, really fun pick. Your point though about R. Mason Thomas was like, that's those three guys, R. Mason Thomas, Darian Price, Danny Dennis Sutton. Those are the three guys that I was kind of like, hey, interesting decision if all three of them got there. Two of them ended up going, was able to still get Danny Dennis Sutton. I think Art Mason Thomas would also be a very good addition to the rotation of the Seattle Seahawks pass rush.
Yeah, but again, having the shouts on those three at that point, that any one of them would be an excellent pick there. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So with that being said, we've had a few picks go off the board here, and I'm going to go ahead and bring us all the way down to where we're currently at, which we are rapidly approaching pick 96 for the Seattle Seahawks here at the end of the third round. Is we've had another tight end in Justin Jolly go off the board, Caleb Tiernan, offensive tackle with a lot of upside from Northwestern, going to the Miami Dolphins. Makes sense. Caleb Douglas, wide receiver from Texas Tech, LT Overton, edge from Alabama, and Takario Davis, cornerback from Washington, off the board there. So having gone offensive guard, having gone edge, positionally, I should say, where exactly do you feel like you want to be targeting? What are you going to be looking for to try and address for the Seahawks here as we approach 96?
So here, I feel like I'd be, the two kind of obvious ones that come to mind would be if there was a running back here who would work, who would manage to kind of come in and add to that room with Zach Charbonnet set to miss some time. Ken Walker, obviously, leaving to join the Kansas City Chiefs in free agency. So that would be one. And I think also a big need would be cornerback. Takario Davis is one of the guys that I quite liked throughout this process. So that's a one to see him go off the board. But yeah, I think that cornerback and running back are the two immediate needs there. Perhaps certainly with the cornerback as well, maybe a more physical style of cornerback. We've got Devon Witherspoon still. Joe was a really nice player, but at times you can see both of them get outmatched when up against your bigger guys like your Marvin Harrison, obviously Mike Evans, kind of moving into this division with the 49ers as well. And Puka Nacua also a kind of fair as well. So you need somebody who can manage to match up against these guys physically. We saw that Harrison a couple of times in particular was just going up and winning balls that Witherspoon and Job just couldn't get to. Not their fault. They've been kind of covering, but sometimes the guys can just get up there higher than the cornerback can. So there's a couple of guys that I quite like in this sort of range. I'll look through to see who's off the board already. But is there what would your kind of plan for this pick be?
Yeah, like you had mentioned, running back would be chief among them. And my top two guys who I've rated very similarly, I should say. Mike Washington Jr. out of Arkansas, who is a very impressive bruising athlete as far as that is concerned. It's just I had seen him kind of when I was watching him throughout the college season, and watched a lot of him at Arkansas, and was like, okay, I see what this guy could do. And then when you got to the combine, you're like, hey, if he tests how you expected to test and the way athlete he is, he's probably going to end up shooting up some draft boards. And obviously that was expected to happen. Other guy, of course, Aaron Johnson out of Nebraska. Not as impressive an athlete, but I think a really, really well-rounded runner, in my personal opinion. A guy that understands how to play the position very well from that perspective. And I know a lot of people also love a local kid of sorts as far as the region is concerned, and Jonah Coburn out of Washington, a kind of I like him a lot to kind of Austin Eckler. Like he's a little bit short, kind of the stout tree stump, but also I think brings a lot of receiving ability that you wouldn't expect for a guy with his build specifically. That I think is kind of impressive too. So certainly running back from that perspective. And then, hey, if you want to be able to look at the DBs on the board. I still like Davison out of Ohio State. Again, kind of guy that could be the true outside corner, Devin Moore or Dalen Everett. Really, any one of those three guys, outside cornerback help, I think could help a lot as far as what the Seattle Seahawks are looking at for their depth chart as well. All those guys are still very much on the board. I'm very tempted to say that we want to go running back, but hey, we'll see what ends up happening these next few picks. We've had Caleb Proctor, defensive lineman, go off the board here, in addition to Jalen Kilgore. Big Citrus, Dominic Orange out of Ohio State goes to the Saints, and Takari Davis, like you had mentioned there, goes to the Miami Dolphins too. So it's let's go ahead and kind of to work through this as well. Outside corner, running back, which way do you feel like you want to go with this next pick?
I think the fact that the three running backs you mentioned are kind of all still on the board here gives you great options. So I think that works as a pick here. I've been a big Jonah Coleman guy. I know that I've kind of mentioned this, and it is a good point that perhaps when Charbonnet comes back, they're both kind of the low center of gravity, kind of keep the legs working through contact, good contact balance type guys. So potentially, if you're looking, I think that would be an absolute steal at this stage. And yeah, really loved, as you say, his tape, and then his work at the combine was excellent as well. Just to add to it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I completely agree with that. And as we say that, we are now on the clock here at 96. And to be perfectly honest with you, I have Mike Washington Jr. as my highest rated running back. I love the fact that you're on board as far as that is concerned with what the fit is. So even after feeling like we're missing out on Jadarian Price ultimately earlier in the draft there at 64 getting sniped, the fact that we're able to address the trenches in those first two picks and now still be able to get Mike Washington Jr. running back out of Arkansas at the back end of the third round to end this day two off, I feel great about it. I'm glad that we were able to secure him as far as that is concerned too. So I'm going to see if we get Manny up here. Manny, before we go ahead and kind of shut everything down here, tell me a little bit about what would you like Mike Washington Jr., I should say, running back out of Arkansas, because you are a fantasy guy as well, about the fit taking over in the Seattle Seahawks backfield.
Yeah, obviously, I think that's an ideal fit. That would be like, the perfect fit as far as where Price goes in, as far as the running back.
I think we're. Hold on, Manny. I think we got the connection issues that we may be dealing with, unfortunately. There. Let me see if we can give him a second to go ahead and get back in here. But yeah, Peter, I would be very excited to see what Mike Washington Jr. could do coming out of the backfield for the Seattle Seahawks.
Yeah, I think that's a great pick, and again, something a little bit different. I think at running back room. I know that the Seahawks like a couple of their guys, like George Holani made a bit of an impact once Charbonnet went down last year, but I think definitely it's a position where they need to add something going into this. And if you start, they brought in Emmanuel Wilson as well, obviously formerly of the Packers, to kind of compete for that starting role. But I think that Washington would be an excellent pick here, and yeah, this way it's also a tough job as well when we've got 4 picks in this draft. So yeah, I love that pick here, and getting him at 96 seems like great value to me.
Yeah, absolutely. And it just, like you mentioned, George Aladi, a little bit different. They went out and added, Emmanuel Wilson from the Green Bay Packers as well. But boy, when you talk about if a guy could put it together with the athleticism that he brings to the table, there's a lot of high upside there. Mandy, did we get you here?
Yeah, can you hear me okay?
Yeah, we got you. Okay. So yeah, talk to me a little bit about the fantasy fit and then also the real life fit that you like as far as Mike Washington Jr. Going into that Seattle Seahawks backfield.
Yeah, like everybody, a lot of people are mocking. They want Price to Washington, but I feel like a lot of people are overlooking the depth in this draft class. Obviously, it's not last year's, but there's a lot of size, especially for Seattle, that I feel like can fit what they want to do, and then also be able to contribute right away. I do like Oli. I think that he was one of the more underrated. Obviously, he didn't get. I felt like a guy that he was a guy that could get be that third running back soon and early in the offseason. I try and reference a couple of my tweets there when I first started watching some of that Boise State film. I couldn't look away. Obviously, I was surprised that he didn't get drafted, but it was pretty deep as far as that class. So I mean, Boise State obviously with other than GNT, it's a guy that it's a school that you kind of overlook a little bit as far as the talent that they can produce. But they have some guys there. Helani, I felt like was one of them. So I trust his ability a little bit to be able to handle some of the workload that he might get early on with obviously with the departure of Kenneth Walker and then the injury to Zach. But I do think they get a guy early within their first couple picks. Mike would be a great pick. I think he's as far as just being able to be reliable and handle the maybe not being every down back early on, but be able to be that fill in for Zach a little bit, especially while he's recovering.
I feel like Mike Washington Jr. going there in the third round to the Seattle Seahawks would be ultimately the kind of dynasty draft crush. It's like, hey, this is we're gonna gas him up the entirety of the summer. Now, does it end up working out? It's hit or miss as far as the dynasty draft crushes, but that would be the guy to be talked up a lot as far as that is concerned. And it's not unfounded because I do really like him as a true running back, and also think that the upside is real because of his athletic prowess in that standpoint. So, Peter, I'm going to give you a little bit of the last word here as we close it out for the Seattle Seahawks War Room on day 2 of the epic mock draft. Chase Visantis at 32, Danny Dennis Sutton at 64, and then for closing it out with Mr. Mike Washington Jr., running back out of Arkansas. Draft haul for the first 3 picks for the Seattle Seahawks in 2026 draft here. How do you feel about it?
Absolutely love it. I think you've managed to kind of fill positions of need and also getting good value at the same time, which obviously that's the aim of the game. That's the end goal. Fantastic picks, and I think that one thing as well that I hadn't even mentioned is that I think they'd be good culture fits as well, which seems to be important to the Seahawks as well. So I think that would be a fantastic haul to come away with at this point. And it's a shame that there's only one pick left with the way that the Seahawks draft is set up. But I think to in kind of shape after these 3 picks is fantastic. It would be ideal if that's what happens later this month.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for the compliment as far as taking over for the Seattle Seahawks front office. And yeah, shame that only one pick, but we'll be back here for day 3, kind of talking through the entirety of this as this draft continues on. Once again, thank you to NFL draft professionals. Thank you to everybody that is participating in this. A lot of fun as well. And a special thanks to my guy CJ from Kingdom Kast, Peter Quinn for jumping on, obviously representing the Seattle Seahawks very well, and my guy Mander Manny, giving me with a little bit of fantasy and Commanders talk as well. We'll be back tomorrow, starting bright and early at I think at 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Looking forward to it as well. Appreciate you guys for coming by. See you tomorrow.